name is Ron Sterniak. I was a poll worker at the TCF Center on Tuesday, and I was on the second shift, so I arrived before 5 o'clock and was released at 4:30 in the morning. During that time, I probably worked for 1 hour and sat around, waited for about 11 and a half hours. So it was a very inefficient process. I mean, at our table, there were 5 roles. I was position number 4. My whole activity was to roll up the ballot and then flatten it out and put it in a box. Position number 3, just before me, her whole role was to pull the ballot out just enough to be able to tear off the stub and then put the stub in an envelope and pull the envelope or the ballot out of the envelope and hand it to me. Realistically speaking, there was no need for more than 3 people at the table instead of 5.
$400 times 5 rolls is $2,000. That's $2,000 per table. That equates to $220,000 per shift, which if you have 2 shifts for the day, that's $440,000. $440,000 just to open up an absentee ballot that was sent to the city of Detroit.
$400 a person, you're talking $2,000 per table.
And this is for a primary for Republican and Democrats to pick their. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're talking two shifts and let's say 100 tables with 5 people at each table, that's like $400,000.
Can educated people living in the state of Michigan expect better efficiency from our State Department?
They very easily could have done that with 3 people at a table, and that's 40% reduction, which is significant. Okay, so in the process of the 11 and a half hours, we handled 112 ballots. They told us when we came in that we'd probably be processing about 80 ballots a table. So we were table number 1. We had 5 precincts. Table right next to us had 3 precincts, but I don't know how they came up with that division. All I'm saying is it was a very costly, inefficient process.
On August 2nd, $2,000 was paid for 5 people to work at a table to process 112 ballots. Do you think it matters to a person that it takes 5 people to open up their ballot and it costs $17.86 just for that ballot to be opened at an absentee counting board? Think about that. These city workers that represent the state of Michigan's election process, they knew that the second shift was only going to have about 80 ballots per table. Why would 550 people have to sit around for 11 and a half hours just to open up the small amount of ballots when these people that were in charge knew that there would probably only be about 80 ballots per table? At the Detroit Absent Voter Counting Boards, there were other duties also. Remember, there was the 110 counting board tables, then there was also 10 adjudication stations, 10 duplication stations, 4 tabulators, and then of course the leadership. All of these tables and stations had people that were all earning at least $400 per day. Do the people in the state of Michigan feel that we could elect legislators to create laws to make this election process a lot more efficient and a lot less costly? What do you think?
And I will say that the other people that I worked with, they were all good people to work with, very friendly. They seemed to be somewhat knowledgeable because several times one of the people would say, that's not what they're telling us to do now isn't what they told us in the training. So they train you one way and they tell you to do it another way. The other thing that I thought was of interest was, it's 4:30 at night or in the morning. We're all very tired. They called our group of precinct tables over, and the balancer said to us, okay, you know, what we'd like to do is we'd like to be able to release everybody now, but we need 4 Democrats and 2 Republicans to help us close out. And then the rest of you, you know, can go. And somebody asked, well, why isn't it 3 and 3? Why is it 4 and 2? Well, the response was, I don't know. That's just what they told us to do.
Well, I'm Nancy Storniak with the Let's Mobilize. And one thing that I am sure is, for instance, a balance of political parties is required by law in each precinct. So when we say we need 4 and 2, that's not balanced. When you talked about the waste of financial resources, is that, for instance, the duplication, which is when there is a ballot that maybe is kind of ripped off or something, goes to a table where you must have one person from each party, because what you're going to do is just copy exactly what the person did on that ballot. But they have 3 people per table for that function, which is a waste of our tax money. I got that I started at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I end up at 5? We stayed there until 4:30 the next morning. I was called to be in adjudication, but they called the people in alphabetical order by last name, and my letter is S. So I waited, sitting there for 6 hours doing nothing.
And you were a paid person also.
I was paid for that time, and there were about 25 people who were supposed to be duplicators right there sitting with me, and they were paid. They were supposed to be there longer, so they were paid also for 6 hours, and they were very mad because they sent them at 2 o'clock, they sent them back home, and they were going to have a reduction on their pay. So I was liberated from my function, and there was a person who's on the Cristina Caramo team, and she said, oh, you can help me as a observer, a challenger. I said, sure, I'll be here. I came here to be here. I'm going to be the whole time. And that's where I saw different things, you know, like more people, why not 1 and 2 instead of 3 doing the same and being paid for, and the doors opening. So I was able to observe more things there that really we need to make more conducive, you know, not wasting money. There were a lot of people there.
Could have been much more cost effective if you eliminated machines entirely and counted by hand.
But the adjudicators were supposed to be there all day, so there was 800 per adjudicator.
Obviously, you know, from my vantage point, I didn't see what I could call corruption. So it's all about the money. I mean, that was such an ineffective process, and it cost so much for such a little output that needs to be streamlined.